I called my mama's phone, called my brother, and nobody answered. And then I called my cousin, and she told me, something had happened to my mom and my brother. And that's when I found out that they were gone.
Yeah, Barbara, just the community here, they are absolutely in mourning. They are grieving. They're trying to make sense of everything. It's a really tight-knit community here on the ground in Wilson, where it feels that everybody happens to know everybody. And tonight, they're just trying to make sense of all of what happened, what they say is a very sad and unfortunate situation that didn't have to turn out the way that it did.
This is the story of Natasha Sutton. On September 15th, 2025, Wilson police were dispatched to the 900 block of Washington Street after multiple reports of gunfire. When officers arrived, they found 4 individuals down at the scene. 2 of them, identified as 44-year-old Natasha Latree Sutton and her 21-year-old son, Avanti Pender, were pronounced dead. 2 others, 37-year-old Tiffany Fogg and 46-year-old Tyron Sutton, sustained injuries. The investigation quickly centered on 39-year-old Dante Maurice Chestnut, a Wilson resident known publicly for leading a youth mentorship program and founding the nonprofit Our Wilson. Despite his reputation as a community advocate, police identified him as the primary suspect in the double homicide. According to police reports and witness statements, Chestnut had gone to Sutton's residence regarding unpaid rent. Video evidence later confirmed that he confronted Sutton and her son, demanding that they leave the property immediately. Witnesses stated that Chestnut produced a firearm during the confrontation. Shots were fired, resulting in the deaths of Sutton and Pender and the injuries to Fogg and Sutton. Chestnut was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. During the investigation, authorities also arrested his sister, Tiffany Chestnut. Court documents state that she assisted her brother by retrieving a part of the firearm that had fallen to ground and handing it back to him as he fled. She was charged with accessory after the fact and evidence tampering. The case, which began as a rent and eviction dispute, progressed rapidly into a homicide investigation. Before we dive into today's story, we want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? And how do you feel as the story unfolds? Welcome to Deadly Crime Unmasked, the show where we expose the shocking crimes that rip through communities and the chilling secrets lurking behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications. You won't want to miss the gripping story that's coming up. Now, let's dive in.
A man accused of double murder now faces a new charge. Wilson police added a second charge for attempted murder for Dante Chestnut, as he accused of shooting 4 people yesterday.
And tonight we are learning more about the victims. This is Natasha Sutton and her son Avanti Pender. They were killed. WRAL's Heidi Kirk spoke with their family this afternoon. Heidi, their family really wants answers.
Well, Lena, the big question that their family members who we spoke with today is why would someone shoot and kill their loved ones? And that's a question that Wilson police officers here at the department in downtown Wilson have been looking into over the last 2 days. But at this point, we still don't know what the motive was. And of course, this is something that the family would really like to know.
Where we are just grieving.
Bishop Sherman Blandon posting this lengthy Facebook message today in response to Monday's triple shooting in Wilson that left a mother and her son dead and another family member injured.
There's a lot of people who don't understand why, don't understand what happened. The unfortunate reality is some of us may never know. But in moments like this, no one wins. And it just leaves a big hole in the community.
According to family, this all stems from a rent dispute where family tells us 39-year-old Dante Chestnut shows up to this home in the 900 block of Washington Street, demanding rent payment or immediate eviction. When 44-year-old Natasha Sutton did not pay, that's when family tells us cell phone video captures Chestnut firing his gun, killing Sutton and her 21-year-old son, Avanti Pender, before pistol whipping another family member and shooting Sutton's sister.
Taking someone's life is never the answer. And realizing that certain consequences.
Chestnut is an anti-gun violence advocate well known here in the community for founding Our Wilson, a community group that works with youth and other community organizations.
I mean, he was very active. It was a part of his life's work. And so that's goes back again to the children that he worked with. I know that there's a huge hole in their hearts, and a lot of them are trying to understand.
Even if, Tasha owed money or whatever the case was, that wasn't it. Violence and her death wasn't it. It doesn't really matter if that was my family member or not. It's still wrong. But it hurts more knowing that it was my.
And tonight, Dante Chestnut remains in jail under no bond. He's due back in court behind me here in Wilson in 2 weeks.
These photographs of Natasha Sutton and Avante Pender are some of the only living memories of this mother and son. Tatiana Rogers and Tyrone Brown say losing their mom and brother still doesn't feel real.
Your heart is ripped out of your chest.
I feel like somebody just stabbed me in my heart.
A fate they say they never would have expected.
I called my mama phone, called my brother, and nobody answered. And then I called my cousin, and she told me, something had happened to my mom and my brother. And that's when I found out that they were gone.
Natasha Latrice Sutton was 44 years old at the time of her death. She resided at 916 Washington Street in Wilson, North Carolina, where the fatal shooting occurred. Public records and obituary notices describe her as a longtime resident of Wilson who had family connections within the community. Reports state that Sutton faced financial difficulties, particularly with regard to housing stability. Local media linked her to a landlord-tenant dispute involving unpaid rent. This dispute is significant because it directly connects her to the accused shooter, Dante Maurice Chestnut, who reportedly acted as landlord or was involved in enforcing rent collection and eviction at the Washington Street residence. Her presence in the community was not widely publicized outside of her family circle, but available records indicate that she was well known among her relatives. Family members who later spoke to the press confirmed her role within her household and her close ties to family in Wilson. At the time of the shooting, Sutton was in her home with her son Avante and other relatives. The confrontation between her and the suspect escalated in her residence, making her one of the primary victims in the case. Avante Pender, age 21, was the son of Natasha Sutton. Like his mother, he lived at the residence on Washington Street. Information available on Pender is limited compared to that of his mother and the primary suspect. Reports describe him as a young adult at the early stages of independent life. He had not yet established a broad public record of community involvement, professional pursuits, or civic engagement. His presence at the Washington Street residence during the landlord-tenant dispute placed him directly in the confrontation that followed. He was killed alongside his mother during the shooting. As with Natasha, Avante's connection to this case is primarily tied to his residency at the disputed property and his role as her immediate family member. Another person injured in the incident was identified as Tiffany Fogg, a 37-year-old woman. She survived gunshot wounds sustained during the shooting. Emergency services transported her to Wilson Medical Center, where her injuries were assessed as non-life-threatening. Also reported injured was Tyrone Sutton, believed to be approximately 46 years old and a relative of Natasha Sutton. He sustained injuries during the confrontation, though his wounds were categorized as non-life-threatening. Some reports indicate that he may have been pistol-whipped or otherwise assaulted during the escalation of events. While not killed in the incident, both Fogg and Tyrone Sutton were critical in shaping the law enforcement narrative of what occurred on Washington Street. Their injuries established the broader impact of the crime beyond the two homicides. The accused shooter was identified as Dante Maurice Chestnut, a 39-year-old resident of Wilson, North Carolina. His background makes the case particularly notable due to the contrast between his public reputation and the crimes he is charged with committing. Chestnut was known as a community advocate. He founded a nonprofit organization called Our Wilson, which focused on youth mentorship, community development, and anti-gun violence initiatives. His work in the community positioned him as a figure of influence, particularly among young people and local residents seeking social support programs. In 2023, Chestnut pursued political office, running for Wilson City Council. His campaign was unsuccessful, but expanded his visibility in the area and reinforced his image as a civic leader and mentor. Chestnut's reputation, however, came under direct contradiction with the events of September 15th, 2025. According to police and witness accounts, he arrived at the Washington Street residence in connection with a landlord-tenant dispute. Reports indicate that he sought either rent payment from Natasha Sutton or intended to evict her household if payment was not made. Video evidence, which was later deleted from social media, allegedly showed Chestnut confronting Sutton and her son Avani at the residence. In the video, he demanded that they vacate the premises immediately, stating words to the effect of "they gotta go today." The confrontation escalated, leading to the use of a firearm. Witnesses reported that Chestnut fired shots that killed Sutton and Pender, while also injuring Tiffany Fogg. Accounts further alleged that Chestnut struck or pistol-whipped another relative, believed to be Tyren Sutton. Chestnut was arrested by Wilson police shortly after the incident and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Sutton and Pender, 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for the injury of Fogg. He was placed in custody and faced initial hearings where prosecutors confirmed their intention to pursue full murder charges. A secondary suspect in the case was identified as Tiffany Chestnut, believed to be the sister of Dante Maurice Chestnut. While she was not directly accused of shooting the victims, her involvement was recorded in the aftermath of the crime. According to law enforcement reports and arrest warrants, Tiffany Chestnut allegedly assisted Dante after the shooting. Specifically, she is accused of retrieving a component of the firearm that had fallen to ground during the incident and handing it back to him as he attempted to flee the scene. Her actions resulted in charges of accessory after the fact, altering, stealing, or destroying evidence. She was placed under arrest, assigned a bond of $30,000, and ordered to appear in court for her role in obstructing the investigation and assisting the primary suspect. On September 15, 2025, a violent confrontation unfolded in Wilson, North Carolina, leading to the deaths of Natasha Latrice Sutton, age 44, and her son, Avani Pender, age 21. The incident began as a dispute over rent payment and eviction, escalated into an armed confrontation, and ended with multiple casualties and injuries. What follows is a straightforward account of the events, pieced together from available reports, witness statements, and documented evidence. At the center of the conflict was a rent payment dispute. The Sutton family, living at 916 Washington Street in Wilson, reportedly faced difficulties in meeting their rent obligations. On the afternoon of September 15th, Dante Maurice Chestnut, age 39, arrived at the residence. Chestnut was not an unknown figure in Wilson. He had been publicly active in youth mentorship and community engagement. However, on this occasion, his role was not that of a mentor, but rather that of an individual attempting to enforce an eviction over unpaid rent. Reports indicate that Chestnut confronted Natasha Sutton and her son Avani directly, demanding that they vacate the property. According to witnesses in a video recording later referenced by investigators, Chestnut made the statement, "They gotta go today." This phrase, directed at Sutton and Pender, clearly references intent to remove them from the home immediately if rent was not paid. Video footage captured the exchange at the residence. The footage, taken by someone present on the scene, shows the suspect confronting Sutton and Pender about their overdue rent. In the clip, Chestnut repeatedly pressed the issue of payment and insisted that the family leave the residence that same day. The video, though it circulated briefly, was later deleted from public platforms. Its removal has been attributed either to the person who recorded it or to efforts by law enforcement to preserve evidence in the case. Despite its disappearance from public access, its contents remain part of the documented timeline, providing evidence of the confrontation that directly preceded the shooting. The confrontation did not remain confined to a discussion. Reports state that the argument intensified outside or near the front of the residence, where multiple individuals had gathered. These included relatives of Natasha Sutton, who were either living at or visiting the property at the time. The verbal exchanges became heated as the issue of eviction and overdue rent was pressed. At least one surviving witness later confirmed that tensions rose quickly, with Sutton attempting to defend her position, while Chestnut insisted on immediate compliance. The scene involved not only Sutton and her son Avani, but also other relatives. Among them was Tiffany Fogg, age 37, who would later be wounded in the incident, and Tyren Sutton, approximately 46, who would be struck during the escalation. Their presence added to the complexity of the argument, as more voices entered the dispute and the confrontation grew increasingly unstable. At some point during the argument, accounts indicate that Chestnut allegedly pulled a firearm. Witnesses described the sight of a weapon being brandished, which dramatically altered the situation from a dispute over housing into a potentially deadly encounter. The introduction of the firearm escalated fear and panic among those present, leading to a chaotic scene that would soon result in multiple shootings. The shooting took place in the middle of the afternoon, in broad daylight, outside a residence in a residential neighborhood. The time of day and public setting meant that multiple individuals in the vicinity could hear and observe what occurred. Chestnut confronted Sutton and Pender at their home regarding unpaid rent, repeating demands for immediate eviction. The discussion turned into shouting. Witnesses report multiple voices overlapping, with relatives intervening in the argument. Chestnut allegedly drew a firearm. Witnesses described a pistol being visible during the escalation. Natasha Sutton was shot. Emergency responders later confirmed her death at the scene. Avani Pender, her son, was also shot and killed at the location. Tiffany Fogg, age 37, sustained gunshot wounds. Though seriously injured, her injuries were later described as non-life-threatening, and she was transported to Wilson Medical Center. Tyrone Sutton, approximately 46, was struck during the confrontation. Reports differ on the exact nature of his injuries, with some accounts indicating he was pistol whipped, while others suggest he may have been injured in the scuffle connected to the gunfire. His injuries were described as non-life-threatening. Wilson Police Department officers arrived shortly after reports of shots fired. Upon securing the scene, they found Sutton and Pender deceased. Emergency medical services confirmed their deaths. Fogg was transported to hospital, and Tyrone Sutton received medical attention. As noted, a video recording exists showing part of the confrontation prior to the shooting. Though later deleted from public platforms, reports confirm that the video captured Chestnut present at the scene, armed, and making statements about eviction. This video has become part of the evidentiary record in the case. Eyewitnesses describe the aftermath as chaotic. The presence of multiple relatives, the sudden use of a firearm, and the injuries sustained created a scene of disorder. According to reports, some individuals attempted to intervene or de-escalate the conflict, but the escalation into gunfire was rapid and left little opportunity for resolution. Reports also claim that in addition to discharging the firearm, Chestnut pistol whipped a relative, believed to be Tyrone Sutton. This detail is supported by differing witness statements and injury reports, though the exact sequence, whether the pistol whipping occurred before or after shots were fired, remains unclear. Nonetheless, the account confirmed that violence extended beyond the gunfire itself. Following the events of September 15, 2025, investigators from the Wilson Police Department immediately began reviewing witness accounts and physical evidence from the crime scene on Washington Street. Within hours, the name of Dante Maurice Chestnut, age 39, surfaced as a primary suspect. Multiple witnesses placed him at the scene during the confrontation, and cell phone footage further corroborated his presence and involvement. Based on preliminary findings, police moved forward with locating and detaining him. Chestnut was located in Wilson within a short time frame after the shooting. The arrest was conducted by Wilson police without incident. Reports confirmed that Chestnut was taken into custody and transported for questioning. At the time of his arrest, police had gathered statements, video evidence, and physical proof sufficient to establish probable cause for criminal charges. The Wilson Police Department, in coordination with the Wilson County District Attorney's Office, filed the following charges against Chestnut. 2 counts of first-degree murder. These charges correspond to the deaths of Natasha Sutton and Avani Pender. First-degree murder in North Carolina requires evidence of premeditation, deliberation, or intent. The state alleged that Chestnut's actions met this threshold, given the confrontation, the firearm use, and the resulting fatalities. 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. This charge is connected to the shooting and wounding of Tiffany Fogg. Though she survived her injuries, the evidence indicated that Chestnut intentionally fired at her, constituting attempted first-degree murder under state law. Investigators did not rule out further charges, noting the injuries to Tyrone Sutton and the involvement of firearm-related conduct beyond the homicides. The official position of the district attorney's office was that additional charges could be filed as evidence developed. First-degree murder charges in North Carolina carry severe penalties, including the possibility of life imprisonment without parole or the death penalty, depending on prosecutorial decisions and aggravating circumstances. Attempted first-degree murder also carries lengthy prison terms, potentially decades of incarceration if convicted. The filing of 2 murder charges immediately escalated the case to a high-profile level, drawing attention from both the community and statewide media outlets. Chestnut's prior public image as an anti-violence advocate and nonprofit leader heightened interest in the proceedings, but law enforcement emphasized that charges were based solely on collected evidence. During the ongoing investigation, police discovered evidence suggesting that another individual, Tiffany Chestnut, played a role in the aftermath of the crime. Witness accounts and a sworn affidavit describe her presence during and after the shooting. Authorities allege that she actively assisted Dante Maurice Chestnut in avoiding detection or arrest immediately following the incident. According to the arrest warrant, Tiffany Chestnut retrieved a piece of the firearm that had broken or fallen during the incident. Instead of surrendering this item to law enforcement or securing it as evidence, she allegedly handed it back to Dante Chestnut as he fled the scene. This act was interpreted by investigators as intentional interference with the collection of evidence and as material support to the main suspect. The Wilson Police Department, again in consultation with prosecutors, filed the following charges against Tiffany Chestnut. Accessory after the fact. This charge is applied when an individual knowingly assists another person after a felony has been committed with the intention of helping them escape justice. Prosecutors allege that Tiffany Chestnut's act of aiding Dante directly satisfied the statute, altering, stealing, and destroying evidence. This charge was applied based on her alleged handling of the firearm fragment. Prosecutors argued that her actions tampered with key physical evidence in the case, potentially affecting the investigation and trial. Following her arrest, Tiffany Chestnut was brought before a magistrate judge for a bond hearing. Her bail was set at $30,000, reflecting the seriousness of the allegations, but also distinguishing her role from that of the primary suspect. The relatively moderate bond amount indicated that the court did not view her as a direct danger to the community, but recognized her interference in a double homicide case. She was ordered to reappear in court on the specified date to face the charges. The arrests of both Dante and Tiffany Chestnut demonstrate the legal system's distinction between primary criminal liability and secondary accessory liability. Dante was accused of committing the core offenses, murder and attempted murder, while Tiffany was accused of actions that occurred after commission of those crimes, aimed at hindering justice. Prosecutors often pursue accessory charges to ensure that all individuals involved in obstructing justice are held accountable. In this case, charging Tiffany with accessory after the fact provided prosecutors with leverage to potentially secure cooperation or testimony against Dante. However, this would depend on whether she agreed to cooperate during pretrial proceedings. Law enforcement noted that further charges were pending investigation, particularly in relation to the injuries sustained by Tyron Sutton, additional firearm-related charges, such as possession or unlawful use, any evidence of conspiracy or prior planning connected to the confrontation. After his arrest, Dante Chestnut was scheduled for an initial appearance before a Wilson County judge. During this hearing, the charges were formally presented, and the possibility of capital punishment or life without parole was discussed as potential outcomes under state law. Pre-trial hearings would follow, during which his defense could challenge the evidence or request bail, though bail in double homicide cases is rare. Tiffany was expected to attend multiple hearings related to her accessory and evidence tampering charges. Her $30,000 bail allowed for pretrial release, provided she complied with all conditions set by the court. The accessory charge itself carried significant prison exposure, though less than the charges faced by Dante. The district attorney's office began preparing a comprehensive case involving eyewitness testimony, video evidence, physical evidence, and forensic analysis. Prosecutors also prepared to argue that Dante acted with deliberate intent during the shooting, qualifying the case as first-degree murder. After his arrest on September 15, 2025, Dante Maurice Chestnut, age 39, was transported to the Wilson County Detention Center. The charges listed against him included 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for the killing of Natasha Latree Sutton and one for her son of Vannie Pender. In addition, he faced 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for shooting of Tiffany Fogg, who sustained injuries that required hospitalization. Within 48 hours of his arrest, Chestnut was brought before a Wilson County District Court judge for his initial appearance. The hearing was procedural, designed to inform him of the charges against him and to establish the state's intention in prosecuting the case. At this stage, the presiding judge formally stated that the state would pursue charges of first-degree murder, which in North Carolina carries a potential sentence of life imprisonment without parole or the death penalty. Chestnut was represented by a court-appointed attorney at the initial hearing, pending his decision on permanent legal representation. During this session, no bond was granted, meaning he would remain in custody until trial. The prosecutor argued that the severity of the charges, the use of a firearm in the presence of multiple victims, created a situation where pretrial release could not be considered. The Wilson County District Attorney's Office announced publicly and in court filings that it intended to pursue first-degree murder charges to the fullest extent of the law. The DA emphasized the deliberate nature of the alleged actions, citing witness accounts and video evidence that reportedly showed Chestnut arriving at the property with a firearm and engaging in an escalating confrontation that ended in multiple fatalities. Prosecutors also filed motions to preserve all electronic and digital evidence, including the video that was initially circulated online before being deleted, as well as communications records, phone logs, and text messages that could establish motive. North Carolina law allows prosecutors to cite aggravating factors in cases of first-degree murder. In this instance, the following potential aggravating factors were under consideration: multiple victims, 2 individuals killed, and 1 seriously injured in the same event, use of a firearm in a residential setting, creating risk to additional people present at or near the property, prior public role of the defendant as an anti-violence advocate, which prosecutors suggested could demonstrate hypocrisy and intent, though the admissibility of this factor in sentencing would need to be reviewed. The district attorney's office filed notice that it would weigh whether to classify the case as eligible for capital punishment. North Carolina law permits the death penalty for certain cases of first-degree murder if aggravating circumstances are present. The DA's office did not immediately confirm if it would pursue this route, stating that a decision would be made once all evidence had been fully reviewed. By late September 2025, the district attorney had not finalized whether to seek the death penalty against Chestnut. Legal analysts noted that North Carolina juries rarely hand down capital sentences, but the multiple victim nature of the case kept that possibility open. The state was expected to announce its official position prior to the formal indictment hearing, scheduled weeks after the initial appearance. In addition to Dante Chestnut, a second person was charged in connection with the Wilson shooting: Tiffany Chestnut, believed to be Dante's sister. According to the warrant, Tiffany was accused of retrieving a piece of the firearm that Dante dropped during or immediately after shooting. Witnesses alleged that she picked up this component and returned it to Dante while he was attempting to flee. The charges against Tiffany Chestnut included accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, altering, stealing, and destroying evidence. These charges reflected her alleged role in assisting the primary suspect after the murders had been committed, rather than participating directly in the shooting itself. At her initial appearance, the court acknowledged her lesser role in the incident compared to Dante, but confirmed the seriousness of evidence tampering allegations. Her bond was set at $30,000, with conditions including regular check-ins with the court and surrendering her passport. Unlike Dante, she was not considered a flight risk, and her release on bond was permitted. Her next court hearing was scheduled to determine the extent of her involvement and to consider whether additional charges would be brought. Prosecutors signaled that her cooperation, or lack thereof, could influence how the case proceeded against her. The arrest of Dante Chestnut produced a strong reaction in Wilson and across North Carolina. Chestnut had a visible public profile as a founder of a local nonprofit called Our Wilson, which worked with youth and positioned itself as an anti-gun violence and community development organization. He had also run unsuccessfully for the Wilson City Council in 2023. The contrast between this public image and the allegations against him became a central point of discussion in media coverage. Reporters highlighted how an individual once seen as a leader in curbing violence was now charged with committing multiple murders. Local leaders, including elected officials and clergy, spoke publicly after the incident. Their statements acknowledged the gravity of the allegations and the damage the case did to community trust. Several pointed out the contradiction between Chestnut's prior advocacy and the violent events of September 15th. Officials also emphasized the importance of allowing the legal process to determine guilt or innocence. The families of Natasha Sutton and Avani Pender released public statements through local media. They confirmed the identities of the victims, provided funeral details, and requested privacy as the legal case unfolded. They also called for transparency in the investigation and accountability for all parties involved. If this story gripped your heart and left you questioning the truth, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with others who need to hear it. For more chilling true crime stories that dive deep into the mysteries behind these tragedies, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest updates, investigations, and thought-provoking discussions. Thank you for being part of this journey with us as we uncover the truth and seek justice. Together, we can make a difference. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.